everybody. Welcome to Pop Jedi. This is episode 30, and we're back. Thank God we are back. I want to thank Garrett and the team at Hanging With for, giving us a new distribution opportunity, editing opportunities, and because of them, that we actually get to thrive. It's a long story that we do not want to get into, but thank you for being patient. Our first episode just dropped today, actually, as we're recording, and it's the Jennifer's Body episode that people have been looking forward to. And we had a lot of fun talking about that cult classic. So be sure to check that out. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm, helps us get out to more people. And we are continuing our love of the Halloween season because, of course, as we said before, me and Jenna are diehard or just horror fans, Halloween season fans. And, we're just continuing on with the terror. And we've got a good one tonight, I think. I think we really have something special, especially considering what dropped today. So, of course, with me, as always, is Miss Jenna Say What. Jenna, what is going on?
Not too much, Rob. What's going on with you?
Yeah, this is an exciting thing that we actually get to continue our journey. And again, we are so thankful for this company believing in us. And we just hope we do something for you. You've definitely done something for us. So thank you so much for letting Pop Jedi continue. With that, we are actually going to get to Top Jedi news. Jenna, what's going on in Top Jedi this week?
So just like we wanted Agatha all along. Mm-hmm. It looks like Agatha Harkness is getting her own show. So congratulations, Kathryn Hahn. This is incredible news for anyone that was a big fan of Agatha during the show, which I think a majority of us are. So it's apparently going to be like a dark comedy. They are being really hush-hush with this one. So Jack Schaefer, she's going to be not only writing it, but she's also the executive producer of the show. Mm-hmm. Again, everything is really hush-hush as per Disney, and nothing is being said, but I'm really stoked to see what they're going to come up with. I think that we're all really excited about this, seeing, especially with the Multiverse of Madness coming out, seeing how, if this ties in, how it does. Mm-hmm. We're all waiting on bated breath currently to see what's going to go down.
Well, I think if you guys have been fans of the show from the very beginning, you realize what a huge fan I am of WandaVision and Scarlet Witch. I mean, I am super, super excited for this, possibility. Apparently, this news actually came from reported, leak on the inside. So yet again, you still have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, simply because Kathryn Hahn or her people didn't necessarily respond to the actual, release information when it comes to the show. I hope it's a reality, but it seems like it is. And, Kathryn Hahn is, she's considered the Meryl Streep of comedy for a reason. And, she definitely deserves her own show. And she, did such incredible work with Agatha Harkness. And I'm just so excited that, now, witches are officially part of the MCU. So excited about that. Yeah. So, I hope news comes of it soon. But yeah, just the idea of it gives me chills.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of chills, next in Top Jedi news, this is the week we've been waiting since, the pandemic happened, and it got, pulled back for a year. And we're finally on the precipice of Halloween Kills being released this week on theatrically, and of course on Peacock if you're a subscriber to Peacock streaming. I'm wearing the shirt. I've had this tattoo for years. I was born in October 1978. Everything about this series is just my jam. I feel like it's part of my DNA. I'm so freaking excited for this movie. And I guess we'll just announce it now. Next week, we'll actually be doing a review of Halloween Kills. And yeah, I don't know, Jenna, what is your excitement level when it comes to Halloween Kills?
Level 3,000, because I love it. 3,000, taking it back to Marvel. But yeah, I'm over the moon I'm over the moon with this. I've also been a big, huge fan of Halloween. I'm really excited. I'm stoked about this. I think that it's going to be really good. I think that they're gonna hit a home run with it.
I think so. I think so as well. Jenna, what else is going on in Top Jedi this week?
So again, more hush hush news. Sorry, Rob. Sorry, I know. Shh, don't tell anybody. So Mandalorian season 3 is going to start filming soon. There is almost nothing about it. There are rumors of Wookiees, which I'm hoping give me more Wookiees. So they gave me my Jawas. Now give me my Wookiees. Again, it's kind of hush hush. There's rumors of when it's going to premiere. However, Rob and I both are not 100% sure that a lot of those rumors are true. So we are not going to say it just in case, because it seems a little too good to be true right now. So we're going to keep that on the DL. But as right now, everything is really hush hush on this. Again, that is Disney's MO. They keep everything on the DL because they want you guys to be surprised. So.
Just like any other geek news, you got to be Salt Bae about this. Greatest salt.
Oh yeah.
But yes, it is absolutely filming, and like the release date, like nobody really knows, and nobody, like you said, like it's all very secretive. Honestly, my hopes are just simply that we do get to see a little glimpse of baby Grogu, where he's going in his journey, and that we have the whole situation with Bo-Katan actually come into focus.
I would like to see more Ahsoka as well.
Oh, well, she's getting her own series next year, so we're going to see plenty of her.
Hush, don't tell anybody.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. So next in Top Jedi news, we have some news that actually Jenna and I are kind of divisive about. I am a huge fan of Squid Game. I actually thought it was kind of a masterpiece, actually, in Korean entertainment. But the great news for them is that, not only are they a worldwide phenomenon, they're the biggest show in the history of Netflix with 111 million subscribers. So I got to give it up to them, because regardless of whether or not you like the show, it's always great to have a platform where you can get content from other countries,
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That get the love that they deserve. And especially with all the, the Asian hate, last year, and it's so wonderful to see Shang-Chi become the massive hit that it had become. And, like now these cast members of Squid Game are just getting deal after deal after deal after deal.
Oh, absolutely.
And the one thing that I thought was really beautiful was that the cast was actually on Jimmy Fallon last week. And they asked the actor who played Song-woo, when did you guys know that this show was, huge? And he said, actually now. He said right now. That's the first time, because he was actually on an American talk show talking about this show. So it's a massive, massive phenomenon. They don't know whether or not they're going to continue with the series or not. There was talks of them actually coming up with a Squid Game video game. Squid Game just built a merch deal with Walmart recently, including jumpsuits for cats and dogs. Run, Sprinkles, run. It's I honestly I haven't seen anything this big in a very, very long time. Not like something that's original that becomes as huge as this. I've not seen that in a while. So finally, in Top Jedi news, to dovetail into our topic, we actually got some really awesome trailer news that which actually dropped today on the day we're recording. Call It What You Want 2022 Part 5, but the citizens of Woodsboro are back, and Ghostface has returned to everybody. Jenna, what is going on in Top Jedi news this week?
So the Scream trailer just dropped today. I'm so excited. Oh my God. So I watched it, and I am a huge fan of Scream. I am a huge fan. Just as like a little snippet of a backstory. I used to get grounded all the time. So I love Scream so much, and I used to watch it so much. that I know it word for word, because like whenever I was grounded from TV, I actually recorded it on cassette. I know I'm dating myself, I don't care, but I recorded it on cassette and would listen to it. So like Scream for me has like such a deep rooted, like it is one of my like happy movies, which sounds really weird, but it's one of my happy movies that really keeps me calm. And it's like Halloween for me, but it was my teenage flick. So the trailer starts off with the like landline phone ringing, and I'm just like, yes. And she gets a text, oh, you should answer that. And with her friend Amber, and she's like, how did you know my home phone was ringing? And she ends up picking up the phone. There's like her doors, windows, everything gets unlocked on her phone. And now I will never have a locking mechanism like that, because that just scared me. But she had opened up the front door. There's Ghostface unlocking all the doors. And all of a sudden she's like trying to like figure out what's going on, and Ghostface kind of pops up behind her after unlocking all these doors and windows and everything. And that right there took me for a wicked ride, because I was like, oh my God, this is my classic Scream. This is it.
So then Dewey calls Neve Campbell, and he goes, do you have a gun? And she goes, of course, I'm Sidney Prescott. I have a gun. Of course I do. And yes.
Like I'm fangirling so hard right now. You have no idea. But so it looks like a lot of the original cast is coming back. It looks like there's going to be a lot of tie-ins with like the original cast fighting this Ghostface. They go back to the original house. I'm so excited. It looks exactly what I was hoping for in a Scream movie.
With that, we're going to get into our topic, because of course, with the excitement of the trailer that was released today, and of course the 25th anniversary that's coming up in December, with theatrical releases that are actually going on right now as we speak, we are going to talk about the original Scream. We figured it was the perfect time to do it. And I have a lot of love for this movie, just as much as Jenna. So, Jenna has already mentioned quite a bit, what Scream means to her. I'm actually going to give a little bit of backstory on Scream for people that aren't familiar. Like you young kids that are watching the show right now, you got to watch Scream, even though it's a 90s movie.
Seriously.
It's special.
It not to mention that, but it also is very much like other movies that we've talked about, like Lost Boys and things like that. There are so many references to the original Scream that you're going to realize how many TV shows reference it. And it's because it's become a complete cult classic now.
Yeah, it was a worldwide phenomenon when it came out in the 90s.
Oh, and absolutely.
So as I said, a little bit of backstory on Scream. Kevin Williamson, the writer of Scream, actually came up with a treatment called Scary Movie, which of course Avery Wayans took later on for the Scary Movie franchise. But he wanted an actual story that was going to be a little more meta, things that he was actually familiar with and passionate about, just like the 1978 Halloween. So technically Halloween Kills and Scream very much hand in hand with each other. When he actually wrote the treatment, he had actually he really didn't have a bunch of deals set up, when it came to the actual story itself. But then as time went on, he actually had a bidding war with Paramount and a bunch of other companies, and he decided to go with Dimension Films. Now, this is where it gets a little hairy, because this is, like Harvey Weinstein's company. But he decided, through Dimension, he was going to go through them because of the fact that he would be able to possibly keep the gore factors within, without being censored, and, be able to keep the meta jokes and stuff that, a lot of directors that he took the treatment to didn't understand. He sent it to George Romero. He sent it to, all these different directors, John Carpenter. They just didn't understand the actual, like the humanity inside of this, like slasher film. Characters that felt more real.
It's very self-aware.
Very self-aware, yes. So Wes Craven, when he got the script, he was actually getting ready to I think he was getting ready to do a remake of The Haunting or The Haunting of Hill House. You know, and when that actually fell through, he needed a job. This is around the time that Wes Craven wanted to break out of horror, believe it or not. And when he became available, I think he was the only one that was, you know, because of his, you know, scholarly mind and all that, he was able to understand what Williamson was trying to bring to the screen. So he agreed to it. They ended up changing the title of Scream, and Scream, you know, the name went through a bunch of lawsuits because there was another film that came out with Jennifer Rubin called Screamers in 95, which was a year before. So there was a bunch of lawsuits with the names. Of course, they won. And here we are with a phenomenon, Scream, that really, you know, made stars and made Neve Campbell probably just as prominent, I would say, as Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, when it comes to Laurie Strode and the Halloween franchise. I think Sidney is, in fact, quite up there. And actually, there was an interview last year during the pandemic. It was actually Neve and Jamie Lee Curtis having a one-on-one with each other. I think it was for Variety or something like that. So
the literal Scream queens themselves.
Absolutely. When Scream first came out, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I didn't like it the first time around. I wasn't in love with it. I think, yeah, I know. And you know, like I got the, you know, the meta in jokes and stuff like that. And, you know, of course, you know, being a Halloween fan, like, you know, like I totally love that aspect of it, you know, because it is definitely a love letter to Halloween. It just didn't hit me the first time. I'm not sure. Maybe I was just too young. You know, I'm not sure. But, you know, as time went on, of course, and, you know, as I got older, I watched it again and I was just like, I freaking love this movie so much. You know, so yeah, I think it took a little bit of, you know, even though it is, you know, technically a teen horror film, you know, like horror comedy slasher film, I think it took a little bit of maturity on my part to actually understand what it was.
Oh man, I realize now how old I was. I had to do the math, but I was 11 whenever because like I didn't get to go see it in the theater, but my dad rented it for me right once it came to VHS. Again, dating myself. But yeah, I was 11 whenever I watched it, whenever it first came out, and I was like, I was so all about it. Like it was everything I wanted in a horror movie again. And like we'll get into it, but like the first death, I was just like like I remember like losing my breath because I wasn't prepared for this actress to go. I was just like, what?
Yeah, and you know the interesting thing about that, you know, like so let's get into it.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, so of course it was Drew Barrymore, you know, playing Casey, you know, and she you know, this is around the time where, you know, like she's even said herself, you know, she was, you know, like she was having a very problematic situation, not only in her life but also in her career. You know, she was doing a lot of direct to DVD stuff. You know, she was really hard to be around. She was, you know, like late to sets, and she was, you know, still, you know, she was Drew Barrymore wild child at that point.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, this really kind of jump started her career as well, surprisingly enough, you know, because
I feel like it actually jump started it.
I think so too. Absolutely. Yeah.
It was like the second
breath of her career.
Breath. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so what did you think of this scene where Casey's gets the first phone call, historic phone call in the genre?
What's your favorite scary movie? I was like, Halloween. And like whenever she was like answering the question, the thing is like I knew my horror movies, and it was like who was the first, or who was the killer in
and Friday the 13th.
Yeah, Friday the 13th. And I was like, it's Jason's mom, it's Mrs. Voorhees. And then she's like, Jason. I was like, oh
no. You're dead.
Yeah, and I was just like, they're not gonna kill off Drew Barrymore. That's Drew Barrymore. And then they did, and I was like,
actually, you know what? That was actually the question for her boyfriend for his life.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, it was just like
her question was, what door am I at?
Yeah, that was her question. But yeah, like the boyfriend and everything, and then they like guts and everything, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And
he's big, like, and he plays football, and he'll kick the shit out of you.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved every bit of that scene. And then like with Drew, like I wasn't prepared for her to like go, and it just threw me off so bad. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
That was so unique for the time, because
Oh yeah.
Drew Barrymore was recognizable enough a face,
That's
to
why she was like,
really, yeah.
kill me off now. Because they originally wanted her to be Sidney Prescott. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, nah, let's mess with him. I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm.
the first girl that dies. And they're like, oh, a scandalo. And then they did it. And it's just like, that was the best move I think they could have done for that.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into the actual movie now. We're introduced to Sydney and Stu and Randy and
Tatum.
and Tatum, of course, played by the lovely Rose McGowan. What was your feelings on this particular bunch? To me, it doesn't feel like half of them should have been friends with each other. It was a very, very odd mix of, like.
I kind of felt like that, but however, like I was in groups of weird mixes.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
it really did resonate with me. Like out of all of them, like Stu, oh man, Matthew Lillard, marry me. Like, oh, like that was one of my first like real, like I had like young kid crushes, like
on a side note, fantastic in 13 Ghosts as well. Very underrated
fantastic
film.
as Shaggy too.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, we got married in my head just then. But yeah, Matthew Lillard was one of my first like big crushes as a teenager, or I guess I would have been a preteen at this point, but I had a huge crush on him, and I was just like, I love him so much. And then of course, like,
But here's the interesting thing. Like,
yeah.
they're talking about Casey's murder, of course.
Yep.
And, they're, sitting by the fountain, or whatever, by the high school.
Yep.
And, we should also mention this is based in the fictional town of Woodsboro, which is, probably just as popular as, Haddonfield now.
Oh yeah,
even
absolutely.
the town itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're talking about Casey's murder. And, what's interesting is, I could see how it actually worked the first time around. But when you actually know what's going on, when you actually look at the way Stu and Billy look at each other during their conversations, it's so obvious that they are the ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And especially with the whole, we would be prime suspects, or, it was just like, oh man, like Billy and Stu just make it so obvious. Mm-hmm. Yet everyone is a teenager and they're clueless. They don't know what's really, they're more fixated on the death itself than like looking out for whoever it is, except for Randy.
Yeah.
Randy's the only one that's like very hyper aware of the situation. And he's like, that's why later on he's like, it's gotta be Billy. Like,
yeah. Well, Randy is actually like, he's all of us, right? The major horror fans.
Yeah. Yeah. He knows the rules.
He knows the rules.
He knows all the rules. He was like me as a kid growing up. I actually made like a whole long page of rules whenever I was.
So Jenna, tell me something. Did you put a spleen in the mailbox? Because I heard you put a spleen in the mailbox.
Of course, that was Jamie Kennedy. And Jamie Kennedy was actually, there was a choice between him and Breckenmeyer. And, Jamie, won out.
Yeah, he's perfect as Randy.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he just like, I just love it. I love everything about it. He's like, works in the movie store. He's like, he's into the horror genre like you and I are. He knows everything about it. So like, yeah. And he's like, oh, absolutely. I would be the first person to be like, a suspect. I would be prime suspect number one kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, of course, because you're obsessed with horror movies. And at that time period, that was a whole thing. Like you were always going to be like, put into that box of like, well, this kid likes horror movies. They're probably going to, kill a bunch of kids at the school. Like we were in that time period.
And I also want to give a shout out to the lovely Henry Winkler, who thankfully is still working to this very day. He's a lovely, lovely man. I love hearing him interviewed. He's so funny, so charming and talented. But as the principal, I will say this: when he says, I care about you and I love you, he means that. Like, this principal,
Yep.
like, really cares for his students.
Yep.
And I absolutely love that factor of it as well.
Oh yeah.
So Billy is dating Sidney Prescott, little supposedly meek, virginal Sidney Prescott.
Yes.
And, let's talk about the long game here, because, if you're not, well, actually, even though this film is from 1996, we have to mention that this is a spoiler, episode. We are going to be talking about some stuff. So unfortunately, if you've not seen it, again, we've mentioned before, it does nothing for the visual experience. But yeah, so Sidney is dating Billy Loomis. Sidney's mother was murdered supposedly by Cotton Weary years before.
Yep.
Which is eventually later played by Liv Schreiber. So Billy's long game is basically, this is a long game. Okay.
A long game.
A long game. So him and Stu, they kill her mother. Then he dates Sidney. And then on the anniversary of her mother's death, he's going to have sex with her, because in movie rules, that's, like the thing that virgins, can't
don't
be
have
murdered.
Sex, don't do drugs, don't say you'll be right back. The three main rules.
Right. And he's so like, look, I was a teenage boy, but, this guy is, compared to most movies, it seems like he's, understanding of the fact that she doesn't want to have sex with him, but at the same time, he's just like so pushy about it. Jesus.
Oh God. She's like, do you care if we are, she's like, let's be a little PG-13. And then, back camera shot, flashes, and then that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's very pushy. He's like, too much.
Yeah.
But again.
Yeah. But then you're thinking, he's just a horny boy, but it turns out he's just a psycho that wants to take her virginity so he can kill her. So yeah. So of course, we're, as you mentioned before, we're introduced to our friend Tatum, and Tatum, she's awesome. Like, I was bummed to see Tatum go later on in the movie.
Me too. I was so sad about that.
She's probably one of the most understanding friends that I've ever seen in horror. Like, she actually listens to Sidney. She, she says things that maybe Sidney doesn't want to hear, but she tries to get her to understand that, maybe your mom was, messing around, in the neighborhood and stuff, she just wants her to see the possible truth, and
yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Yeah. Whenever Tatum died, I was so sad about that. And oh no, Mr. Ghostface, I want to be in the sequel. And I was like, oh, and again, it goes into the meta thing. Like, love it.
Yeah. So, of course, there's a bunch of fervor going on in Woodsboro, and there's a bunch of news reporters all around. And of course, we're introduced to Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, who at the time was actually Monica in Friends. And she wanted to take the part because Gail Weathers is kind of a bitch, and she wanted to be seen in a different light so she could kind of break away from Friends a little bit. And you know what? I will say this, when it comes to Dewey and Randy and, even Gail, I don't watch a lot of Courtney Cox stuff, but Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers is just as iconic as any other character in horror. Most definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I like Courtney Cox. I loved her in Cougar Town. So I
Masters of the Universe.
Yeah. But yeah, I love Courtney Cox. So and this was this predates anything that I really watched with Courtney Cox. This was my first introduction to Courtney Cox, because I didn't watch Friends. That was not in my wheelhouse. And
no, me neither.
Yeah. And eventually, later on, recently in the past 5 years, I started watching Friends, and I was like, oh, but yeah, I thought that she made a great Gail Weathers. And I love the relationship that she had with Dewey, that cutesy, oh, I'm gonna flirt a little bit, and then they end up being together, and it's just, oh, I love it.
Well, Gail Weathers is originally she's kind of a monster because she,
Oh, yeah.
She's looking for, she's looking for a Pulitzer. She's looking for,
Yeah.
you know,
She wants that breakthrough.
Yeah, so she wrote a book about Sidney's mother's murder, which of course doesn't sit well with Miss Prescott at all, and wants to beat the hell out of Gail every time she looks at her, which she eventually does punch her. I'll send you a copy. Bam, bitch went down.
I love like Tatum. Bam, bitch went down. Bam. I was like, oh, yeah, Tatum.
And if you would mention David Arquette, and of course, we're introduced to Deputy Dewey Boy, and he's I don't know, not your typical hero, I would say.
Nope, not in the least bit.
What did Mom say? When you're around me, I'm a man of the law.
They were like that relationship between Tatum and him were just like, it was so cute. Like. It was a brother-sister relationship, and it was just like they did it so well. They really, really put it on and made us believe that they were siblings. Like, it was so cute.
So Sidney, she's at her home by herself, and she's just trying to break away from all the craziness and all the news reports going on and everything. She flips on the news, and of course Gail Weathers talking about her mother. So she decides to take a nap. She gets a phone call later in the night. Hello, Sidney. And this is the cool thing, because this is where the movie seriously starts to get meta, because she says, basically like some big-breasted bimbo runs up the stairs instead of running out the door. It's insulting, when it comes to horror films. And she technically does the same thing, but instead, the answers, are upstairs. So she actually did the right thing, the proper thing. If she did run out the door, she would have gotten butchered.
Yes. But she also didn't know that there were two.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Skeet Ulrich. Skeet Ulrich was actually, he was signed on to this movie because he was very reminiscent of Johnny Depp and his look in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Again, very meta. They really like iced that cake as best as they could in the terms of like, they made it iconic. They like, I loved that. I caught up on that immediately, that they had picked him because he kind of looked like a young Johnny Depp, and that kind of look is perfect.
Yeah, and we're supposed to think that he is, some sort of innocent, even when he drops the phone. And again, we were talking about the long game. Like his whole thing is just like, honestly, I don't even know if that was an accident. Like, you know what I mean? Like him dropping the phone on the floor. It seemed like it was still part of the game somehow. Like, I'm going to make you feel shitty because you think I'm the killer when, like in reality, you shouldn't, because I'm your boyfriend and we love each other.
He definitely like he's a sociopath. Like, he is absolutely like out of his mind, evil. So of course he's gonna like gaslight her like that. Of course he's going to. So it was kind of obvious to me that that's probably who it was. But there were times where I was like questioning it and being like, maybe it is Randy.
Yeah.
It can't be Randy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So all these kids are running around in the school, and this is the great setup, because once we're in the high school, you realize, oh, it could be anybody. It could be these like guys that just think it's funny, and they're running around in these Ghostface masks. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like this is a like in this world, this is a mass produced costume. Anybody can buy it at any five and dime. You know what I mean? It's not hard to get. So, like the suspect list becomes massive after that, when absolutely. You see all these kids running around with it. So Sidney is actually, she's in the bathroom, and these two cheerleader assholes are talking to each other, and, basically says, well, maybe she did kill her mother, and, realized it. Yeah.
And like pinning it on Sidney. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then in walks Ghostface. And then I love the like her looking under, and then the drop of the like gown, and you're just like,
yeah, very cool shots. Very cool
Yeah.
shots. Another thing I will say about Wes Craven, this is something I had also said. I had mentioned Jennifer Rubin, in her film Screamers. But I actually had an interview with Jennifer a couple years ago. One after it was one for it was before, and then one after Wes Craven had passed. And one of the things we had a conversation was, like especially with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, her character really resonated with me. Simply because I was going through some, like dark stuff, like drug addiction stuff and whatnot, and when I was young, and but Wes Craven always had the language of the youth, I thought.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
It always felt like he knew, even though it was Williamson's script, it was like Wes knew, like the actual dialect of how a teenager would speak.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's why Wes Craven has always been one of my favorite film directors, is because of that reason. He seemed to always be in tune with that. And man, whenever we lost him, it was, oh God, my whole heart broke. My world was shattered.
Yeah, it was rough. It was definitely rough. But yeah, so Henry Winkler loses his mind on these two kids and basically says, like I should, gut you and hang you from a flagpole or whatever, and this and that. And then you see him, of course, wearing the mask later on, just trying it on, I guess, for fun, I guess.
Yeah.
And this, of course, like he hears a noise, he looks out into the hallway, and this is where we get our Wes Craven cameo, where he's playing Fred the janitor.
Oh, wonder what that was from. Yeah, that was another one where I was just like, I see you guys.
For sure. So of course, Principal Hembree gets it, and he's screaming, like bloody murder. And this is interesting because this is something that actually was introduced into the script later on, because Kevin Williamson realized that there was 30 pages, into the script at that point, and there was no murders. So he had to take out the principal. Somebody had to die. Because
Not Henry Winkler.
I know.
I was so sad whenever they killed him off. I was like, no. Like it was reverting me back to, the Drew Barrymore thing, where I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah. I was not.
And this is where Keenan and I were Wayne's genius, because in Scary Movie, it was actually Principal Squiggy. It was Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley.
Yep. They honestly, I love how they did Scary Movie too.
Me too.
They really
got it.
Just as meta. Yeah. I mean, you can't get much better of a spoof comedy to a horror film than Scary Movie.
So there's a curfew in Woodsboro, and Stu's gonna have this blowout party. And of course, Randy, who works at a video store, which is very close to my heart because I also did work at a video store when I was young. He's going to bring the horror films, for the proceedings. And that's such a Randy
thing to do. I love it.
Stu Macher's party is great because there's all these different components and pieces to what's going on. You got Gail and her motivations outside. Dewey patrolling the party. And then of course, what's going on inside the party.
Yep.
So Stu, basically tells Tatum, get me another beer. And, she's like, what am I, your beer wench or whatever? And she goes out to the refrigerator in the garage. We get a foreshadowing of a cat going through the cat door in the garage door. And then of course, that's where Ghostface appears. And we have a great moment of dialogue with Tatum.
Oh no, Mr. Ghostface. Don't kill me. I want to be in the sequel. Yeah. And it's
cut it out,
meta.
Casper. That's a wrap. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like there were so many meta moments in this that it was just they knew what they were doing with this.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get into it with the Randy scene, but that's the great. I think that's the most unique and great thing about Scream is something that you mentioned is that we're in a world where these horror movies actually exist.
Yep.
And we've never really seen that before.
No.
Not in this caliber. So she's throwing beers at Ghostface, and you know what? Let me tell you something. Like, I don't care how tough you are.
I would have
You're
been
getting
knocked out.
bombarded with glass in your private area, but mind you. And you know, you're still, you know, she's still like having to run after, you know, run away from this guy. So she runs through the garage door, and you know, for better for worse, you know, might be some male writing stuff, but her breasts are too big. She can't get through the door. And she goes and she gets crushed in the garage door.
Yep. I feel like that was a deliberate meta move on their part. Also, just an FYI, that garage door wouldn't have ever, that thing would have broke immediately. The second that it started to lift her up, those garage doors do not last like that. You can't pull.
Yeah. Well, let's mention Rose McGowan for a second, because Rose McGowan at the time was, you know, doing a film that I actually loved growing up, which was called The Doom Generation. You know, so she was doing like, you know, some smaller, you know, indie stuff at this point. She wasn't doing anything as large as this. I don't even think she was doing Charmed at this point. I think this is probably like one of her first like major feature roles.
This was definitely one of Rose McGowan's first major roles. I'm a huge fan of Rose McGowan, both as a person and as an actress. So like, I was really sad to see her go in this. Of course, I was more of a fan of hers like after I saw the show or after the movie, because of the movie. Like, I ended up following her, her career later, because I loved her, like especially in Charmed, things like that. I really love her as an actress.
Well, not to get into, you know, like darker territory, but, you know, like we said, you know, like this is a great film, but, you know, because of the production company, it is problematic. And, you know, all the stuff that, you know, Rose has come out with when it comes to, you know, Harvey Weinstein and this company.
Yep.
You know, she was definitely like real prey during this film.
Oh God. Yeah. And like I said, I really love her as a person, because she is such a huge women's advocate, and she's very outspoken about what went down in this kind of scene, especially with Scream and with that. And she deserves so much. And I'm just glad that she really thrives at this point. It really stinks, because I know that she doesn't act as much anymore. And she's such an incredible actress.
She is. She's very solid. Very, very solid.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so she's murdered, and we go back to the party, and Randy is having the conversation of the rules with the group. You know what? I want to say something about this as well when it comes to Scream. This does not make teenage boys look good. They kind of look like idiots. They look like idiots. They kind of look like idiots throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, well, when do they? They're teenage boys. Come on. I was a teenage girl. Listen. Like,
I just didn't realize what animals we were until I watched stuff like this, and it's like,
like, no,
it's very,
it seems about right. Yeah,
it's very cringy.
At least in my high school, absolutely, yeah.
Very
like
cringy.
In my teenage years, absolutely. That's, I think, why it resonated with me so much, is because it really showed that like there were obvious problems, especially during that time period. Like a lot of the stuff that they were doing that was really problematic and very blatantly sexist, or, you know, a little like very pushy on women. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, absolute horn dogs.
I had to deal with that all the time. So it was like, I think that's another reason why I really like this movie, is because it resonated with me in that aspect, where I was like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, so he's mentioning the rules because they're watching the original Halloween, and you know, we don't see Jamie Lee Curtis's breasts until Trading Places in the 80s, and that was something else that Randy also mentions. It was actually PJ Souls. For anybody, you know, doing any trivia, she was the one that actually bared her breasts in the original Halloween. But yeah, you know, like, again, you know, like another meta moment, you know, where he's very self-aware, and, you know, we know these films exist within this, you know, within this world. You know, and you're not supposed to tell anybody, you know, that you'll be right back.
Because you won't be back.
And because you won't be back. And that's when Stu goes, does anybody want a beer? I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah.
So you were talking about this, like this dynamic between Gail and Dewey. Dewey brings her into the house. She ends up hiding a camera right in front of everybody, by the way. I don't even know how the hell you would not see this thing. You must be really, really drunk.
No. They're drunk teenagers. Mm-hmm. I rest my case. That's it. Gavel. Boom, boom. Like, case dismissed.
Mm-hmm. It's very, so we have this very sweet situation between Dewey and Gail. Mm-hmm. And then, that's where, we really get to see Gail's character open up because, she realized that a lot of people don't like her because of what she does. Mm-hmm. Because she's, just trying to, tell the news and tell stories in a proper way. She's not as insidious as she's made out to be in the beginning.
Yep.
Even though she calls her sorry, video camera guy, a fat ass, and she's not very nice.
No. She's not nice. Like, that character was not meant to be nice, at least in this film. Mm-mm. She eventually chills out. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Yeah. Move your fat ass, Kenny. Yeah. She's
poor Kenny.
We got to shout out W. Earl Brown, who played Kenny, the cameraman in Scream. He is a very adamant advocate of this film. He's such a huge fan of it. And anytime there's a Scream premiere or something happens, he is the first to thank the fans, because he realizes what a huge phenomenon he's part of. So yeah, he's awesome. He definitely needed to be mentioned. Even though Gail isn't nice to him at all.
Nope.
So we're in a situation where Sidney and Billy are upstairs. And of course, we're at the moment where she's, finally going to give a virginal flower to him. I guess, she's just at the point where she's just, like, I don't know, she just wants to feel something.
Yeah.
So he's got her right where he wants her.
Yep.
And, oddly enough, there's not anything really romantic about the scene. That's what I love about it. You know what I mean? It's very like paint by numbers, I guess.
Yeah.
The way that, Craven, like the way he filmed it, it feels very like, it feels like a plan as opposed to, a beautiful moment between two people that love each other.
Oh yeah. But I feel like that was good for these two people in general. Like, this was Billy's plan all along. Now he's laid that web. Mm-hmm. Now she's that fly in that trap, or so he thinks. Mm-hmm. And he's got her. Right where he's got one of the parts of his plan now.
Mm-hmm. So after the sex, here's the great thing about this, because even after sex, she still questions him. Like, oh, well, that's funny. Because you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. She's still got her eye on him. She's like, mm-hmm. I don't trust you.
Yeah, I don't trust you. Like, so we find, so we realize, just like I had mentioned with the actual way it's filmed, like, like he's got a motivation, and, she just has a motivation of, you know what? You were just a dick, dude, at this point, but I still don't trust you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And this, of course, is like, you still don't trust me. And this is where Ghostface comes behind Billy and supposedly stabs him. And again, she's in a moment of like, oh, I was wrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That threw me through a loop big time whenever that happened. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's not him then. I was like, it's gotta be Randy. Because again, no way would it be my Matthew Lillard. No way would it be Stu. He's my boy.
So speaking of how awful teenage boys are, I do have to mention this. Like, there's a couple boys left watching Halloween with Randy, and they get the announcement that Principal Hembree has been hung on the flagpole with his guts hanging out. And they're like, yeah, we got to go. Let's go look at him. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. So they all leave. That's what gets the house empty, is that they want to see the principal, who actually cared for them, like hanging on.
Rude.
Mm-hmm.
Rude.
Yeah. So we're left with all the main characters in the house by themselves. And, of course, there's a lot of, chaos that ensues and stuff. And, Randy's still technically a suspect.
Yep.
He ends up, like everybody like kind of ends up outside at this point.
Yeah.
And Kenny gets murdered.
Poor
Sidney's hiding in the van. There's this whole cat and mouse thing going on outside.
Oh yeah.
And like Sidney ends up back in the house, and that's where Billy, poor Billy boy, runs down. He falls down the stairs in very realistic fashion because he threw himself down the stairs.
Yeah, dramatic.
And she's he basically shoots Randy, and he just basically says corn syrup, the same type they used in for pig's blood and Carrie.
Yep.
And you're like,
oh yeah, it all starts going, oh no. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, it's Billy. It's been Billy this whole time. And then of course Stu comes up.
It's been Billy Loomis all along.
Sidney. And it was both of them. It was actually Billy and Stu.
Yep. I loved that. The whole like they came up and they're like, what's your favorite scary movie? I was like,
yeah,
like it just
he comes up to her, he goes, hello, Sidney.
Oh yeah, that's right. He said hello, Sidney. My bad. But yeah, it was just like that whole voice changer thing that ended up like spurring like a whole thing of like voice changers. Like my friends and I had voice changer phones, like home phones. So like we would do that at first. Like my friend and I both had voice changers on our
My son had a voice changer megaphone that he bought from like Five Below, and of course that was the first thing I did when I picked it up to test it. Hello, Sidney.
Yeah, absolutely. It's either hello, Sidney, or what's your favorite scary movie?
Because it's part of the vernacular. It's part of the pop culture wallpaper vernacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have this moment in the kitchen where we hear about the plan, and that was something we were talking about when they were actually going to pin the murders on her father, and they were going to be the only ones that actually survived because they only got minorly stabbed. Yes. And this is where these two morons decide to stab each other.
Yeah, I'm getting woozy here. Like, yeah, I just, man, it shows you how psycho these two are. To like, they are just like stabbing each other.
Which, by the way, is one of the greatest lines in the whole movie, is when Sidney goes, "You're a fucking psycho," and he goes, "Don't you blame the movie, Sid. Movies don't make psychos. Movies make psychos more creative."
Yeah.
Bravo. Yeah. So they're stabbing each other, and it's probably because of the bloodlust that they now have, because they actually murdered people now and they actually enjoy it. But Stu gets a little, like knife crazy when he's stabbing Billy, and of course, Billy's like, "Give me the knife now!" And he like stabs the hell out of Stu.
Yep.
Where Stu is just basically bleeding out.
Yeah, and Stu's like, "I'm getting woozy here," like, and he's like, very obvious, like, they are not 'tis but flesh wounds. They're definitely wounds.
They're
like,
death wounds, yeah.
Yeah, they're death wounds.
So Sidney somehow escapes, and she's running through the house, and this is where Billy's absolutely crazy, because he not only chases after her, he starts stabbing up the furniture.
Yeah, we also skipped over the fact that they had her dad.
Yeah, they had her dad tied up in the closet.
Yep. And he was
alive. Their plan was they were going to stick the phone, the recorder, and the knife in her dad's pocket, which is so Scooby-Doo. Like, how did you think any of this was going to work? Again, this is where we find out that Billy's absolutely a maniac, because he starts taking his revenge out on the furniture, and he's, there's all kinds of feathers flying around and stuff, like, because he's so angry that he can't find her. And she's basically in the closet with the Ghostface costume and stabs him with an umbrella, which is a nice little touch, because it's not really a weapon we get to see. Maybe in Batman Returns, but like
I kind of felt like that was a nod to the original Halloween of
the coat hanger.
Yeah, the coat hanger. I felt like that was kind of like a nice little parallel with that.
So this is where Gail kind of saves the day. Because Billy gets shot by Gail, and he also told her that the first time she tried to shoot him that like, maybe you should check if the safety's on next time, and she goes, safety was on that time, asshole. And then Stu comes running in, and she, basically gets attacked by Stu.
Yep.
And she, she gets away from him easily, and he basically gets his face smashed in by a television.
Yes. The television falls right on his head. Zap, zap.
Mm-hmm.
Dead.
Which the rumor is that supposedly Stu Macher is the one coming back for Scream 2022. So if he can survive a television, like electrocuting his face, then
give me my boy.
That's what the rumor is. Anyway, so yeah, so there's the moment, of course, where Brandy says, this is the moment where,
he pops up in the third reel.
He's good. Yeah, you pop up in the third reel and get your final scare.
Yep.
And that's when Sidney, shoots him in the head and says, "Not in my movie." So that's Scream. Actually, there's a couple things that we should probably mention when it comes to this movie. This was actually based on real life. This was there's a situation that happened with a serial killer in Gainesville, Florida. He's called the Gainesville Ripper, and he actually murdered 4 students very, very brutally in 4 days.
Yep.
There was also a situation that actually happened. And this is something I do remember because I was a horror fan, as a young person. And, of course, this is kind of the same time where, horror was not very accepted at this point, and it was considered absolute trash. And it was, junk food for the youth. And it was, like giving, like violent tendencies, to young people and this and that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of murder cases that came out of the Scream franchise, especially the first film.
Yep.
There was, there was a few stabbings. There was a situation where these brothers ended up killing their mother, and they used Ghostface as a reference. Yeah, this film was demonized quite a bit.
Yeah. I remember that whenever it came out. Yeah, that there was a lot of controversy around it because of the almost glamorization of the serial killers themselves. So yeah, absolutely. It had such a bad reputation at first, but I mean, I feel like it's grown completely out of that shadow. And I feel like we're kind of in a better mindset nowadays where we're like, this kind of stuff is going to happen, just, even though the movie, like they're using the movie as like a reference point, these people are psycho enough and mentally unstable enough to use anything. If it's not Scream, it's going to be something else. So we're emotionally and like intellectually beyond that, I feel now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because we realize that it's a mental health issue that we need to start like really putting resources and things towards mental health, because these things are attracting to these people because of the fact that like they have X, Y, and Z issues. And
well, this is also around the same time too that like the PMRC situation was still happening. Columbine was actually a situation that also happened as well.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of advisory going on when it came to video games and all kinds of stuff. And people are always trying to government is always still trying to instill that, and they fail every single time.
Yeah.
Because it's not seen in the same light, like you said. Like it's the difference between entertainment and mental health now, as opposed to
yes.
Like movies making psychos more creative, as Billy Lynn said.
Except for the fact that it's always at dismount, guys. Always at dismount. They can they're always gonna get caught. So it's just like, yeah. I'm glad that like the people that did, do those horrible things after the movie and use the movie as an excuse. I'm very glad that the families got that closure and they got their justice. Because man, like I hated during that time that horror and video games and things that I really enjoyed were being stigmatized like that. So, but again, Scream came out on top, and now we have it again in 2022.
Yeah, it's a huge legacy now. I also want to give a shout out, because I don't know when we're going to be talking about Scream again. I want to give a huge shout out to a show that initially I of course as a horror fan I was like okay, but the Scream MTV series was fantastic. It was so good.
I still have to watch it.
It was so good. And like they really you know, like they didn't shy away from the gore. There's actually some really, really gory scenes in that. And, you know, the characterization was wonderful. And, you know, like I just wanted to give the MTV series some love because it was really,
Good.
really awesome.
Yeah.
Which, you know, which is why I don't knock the I Know What You Did Last Summer situation. It's going to happen on Hulu in 4 days. It might be fun.
Loved that
It
movie.
might be fun. It might be
I
fun.
loved that movie.
Mm-hmm. It might be fun. It might be cool. Yeah, I mean, there's really not too much else to say except, you know, it's hitting its 25th anniversary this year. And one thing I will say, you know, I absolutely, I've always adored Drew Barrymore. Had a huge crush on her when I was a teen. I love her now as an adult. You know, her show is just so spunky and bubbly, and she's so weird and so energetic and lovely. And I do have to give a lot of props to Drew Barrymore because I remember last year during the pandemic, and I actually have a picture of it that I took. It was such a historic moment. She got Scream on CBS. So that was the first time we actually saw a slasher film on national television like that. It was incredible. You know, so I actually, I took a photo of the TV when that actually came on. Of Casey on CBS before she got murdered. And I was like, this is insane. I can't believe I'm living this moment. So I remember, you know, as a horror fan, like you said, you know, like there was a moment where this was all garbage.
Yep.
You know, and we were deviants and we were awful, you know, like we're going to grow up and be, you know, like monsters and killers, you know, and this and that. And, you know, to see it on CBS really meant a lot to me. You know, because I remember, you know, just being a horror fan as a youth and as an adult, you know, like kind of being, you know, demonized for that. So seeing it hit the mainstream like that was really special.
Oh, absolutely. Same.
Mm-hmm. So again, guys, that's Scream. You know, we hope you're enjoying our Halloween season episodes. Like I said, please like and subscribe. It helps us get out to more people. Really do appreciate the love and support. And of course, you know, the terror rolls on because next week we're going to be talking about the 2021 release of Halloween Kills.
Woo! I'm so excited.
So go ahead and throw that mask on and we'll sign off here, Jenna. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us. If you haven't seen Scream, be sure to check it out. It's a classic. And we'll scare you later. Talk to you soon.
We'll scare you later.
Bye.